And we have the thing. Okay. Do we have anyone on public participation, the attendees? Let's just say, yeah, Brian Bailey, who should be elevated.
Yes.
Promoted to panelist, and then we'll make sure. Did that not work? All right. Okay. Well, I'm going to start because it's recording. Good morning, everybody. This is the January 24th, 2026 special meeting of the City Council with special guest, the mayor. Before we get started, I think we should rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance. Flags over there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of
of the
America,
United States,
republic for which it stands, one nation,
nation, under God, indivisible,
justice for all.
just for.
Thank you. So this is a special meeting. This is, we do this every term, which is an orientation meeting of the City Council. Of course, now I have the agenda on my computer and I forgot to log on to the internet. Oh, okay, sure. All right, so in attendance here, for the record, council members, Richard Dellinger, Jim Freyer, Jan Degenschein, Nicole Ayers, Jesse Buffalo, Ann Wennerstrand, Darlene Young, and online, I see council members Brian Bailey, Roderick Sawyer, Colin Hostin, Jalen Seed, and Nicole Eady. Anyone have a copy of the agenda because I'm sorry to borrow it for a second. I just want to make sure that I'm saying that correct and not okay. Well, first, thank you. So now that we've done the roll call, I'd like to turn our attention to our new and wonderful mayor, Barbara Smith, who is going to provide a stirring welcome message.
Well,
Stirring.
I don't know how stirring, but
A
no.
warm welcome message. Thank you. There we go. There it was.
I like it, Richard. So, yeah, so just welcome to everybody. It's very good to see everyone here for your onboarding and, you're going to be talking about, some of the initiatives that you'd like to be working on. It's very, really wonderful for me to be still sitting at this table with you, but just in a different role. And so welcome to the new council members.
Councilmember Johan Lopez is in attendance.
Just arrived. And, I know you have, did you get the agenda in front of you?
Yeah, I got it.
You're going to be talking about, some of the processes, some of the, conflict of interest?
Yep, conflicts of interest, roles and responsibilities of members. And then of course, talking about things that we want to focus on in the next couple of years.
Yeah. So, I look forward to working with all of you and, working together on initiatives. Let's keep in mind, we are all Democrats. That doesn't mean we always agree, right? Some of you might have different initiatives. And so that's what you're here to do, is talk about what's important to the council as a whole. So looking forward to everyone getting to work.
Great. Well, thank you, Mayor. And obviously, is there anything you want to say about Storm tomorrow?
Well, I can tell you that we have good thinking, Josh. Yeah, so the storm is expected to begin Sunday morning sometime around 6-8 o'clock. I have declared a snow emergency beginning today at 2. And so what that means is we would like everyone to get their cars off of the streets. If you are parking on the street, so Yankee Doodle Garage and Maritime Aquarium or Maritime Garage are open to you beginning at 2. We have warming centers and I know we have the police station, the libraries until the point that they're closed. I really just want to remind people, do not park at City Hall, do not park in the schools, and to make sure to stay off the road so that the DPW crews can do their work.
Yep, and the only thing I want to add to that, first of all, to thank you to the mayor and the incredible team at DPW who are going to be working very, very hard. The mayor, council members, myself and Councilmember Ann Wennerstrand were at the Operations Center yesterday and got a real lowdown on the immense preparations they're making. And there's going to be regular and a lot of social communication on the various social media feeds on Facebook, Instagram, that the city's doing, and they're doing an excellent job.
They always do.
Yes, they do. And with that, I want to open it up. If there's anyone from the public who would like to speak, please raise your hand. There is one person in attendance in person. Diane, why don't you come over here because the microphone's here, so that way it can be heard. So Diane, you know the rules. So I will set up the timer. As you know, I know it's 3 minutes and anything on the agenda. I know it's a pretty broad agenda today, so.
Sure.
You know,
I will, I will keep it to that, but please let me finish my sentence once
well, I'll give you a warning, as we do here. So, go ahead.
Very good. For the record, my name is Diane Lauricella at 21 Little Fox Lane. First of all, I wanted to thank you for allowing the public to speak and even listen in on your initial training. That's a good sign for the future because we want to help our council be successful. I am an advocate and an activist, which just means that I believe in active government. So you see me at committee meetings, and one thing I wanted to just dispense here today is that I really do believe that we want our council members and our boards and commissions, and our mayor's office to lead by example. What I mean by that is that when some of us offer information, of course, it is your discretion what you look at and what you believe or ask for more information. But I would like to see this council, and I'm not going to look up at any one particular person, but I would like to see those of you to call back the public or text back the public when they take their personal time to give information that will help you do your job. The thing is, I also want to see that we try to find creative and effective methods and measures to let the public know, because rightly, Mayor Smith and others said we have to learn how to get out and reach our people. Let's use creativity. Let's have fun with it, not just social media. Right now, I'm hoping all of you will get out to your districts about this snow emergency in creative ways. Use the press more because they need to be on point. And it's not just Nancy on Norwalk, it's the Hearst people and Channel 12. They have to step up more. New email addresses, a lot of us are confused about that, and we look forward to learning about that. We also look forward to seeing that the Zoom meetings get more permissions turned on, like video and chat, because we want to see who's on the meetings. For your legislative priorities, I'll just tick them off, and I will be sending in writing. I want to see more discussion about enforcement of all of our laws, including the health department, zoning, fire marshal, etc. I would like to see a holistic approach to waste management, energy policy, coastal and resilience and flooding, because we need to use all of government, not just particular silos. I want to see more ability for the council to do due diligence if it means hiring extra people and oversight of the staff. Lastly, I have more specific examples that I'm happy to give, and I thank you again for letting me sit in on your orientation. I will have more of this. I'd like to give this to you. And I will have more for all of you because of my professional background in energy and waste management and hazardous materials. Thank you.
Diane, that was perfectly timed. Thank you. I give you credit. Is there anyone else from the public? Johan, would you mind taking the mouse from the computer and clicking over to the attendee? Is there anyone else from the public who wishes to speak, who would like the opportunity to do so? If so, please raise your hand on the Zoom icon and we will make sure to move you over. I do not at this point see anyone with their hands up. Last call. Okay, then I'm going to close public participation and move on to the next item, which is a general discussion of the roles and responsibilities of mayors of the Norwalk members of the Norwalk City Council. I want to note just a couple things. A lot of this is stuff that we have previously discussed, so I don't want to beat it at a horse. But I first want to thank Esther Murillo, who really did a yeoman's job helping to, first of all, update the handbook to reflect some changes whether it comes from organizational, the district maps, what have you. There was a lot of thought put into this. And putting together the handbooks for members and also helping set this up, working with IT and getting the meeting all organized. So first of all, big thank you to Esther. Second of all, please do take the time to read the handbooks. This is something, and I want to give credit where credit's due, because Councilmember Darlene Young helped make this happen a while ago. And frankly, the work that's here today is built off work that you did as council president. You know, we did, yeah. So, yep. And so it actually makes our lives easier when it's an editing job versus we need to start with a blank piece of paper job. So thank you. Please take the time to read this. It really does have a lot of the rules of the road. Has everything from an organizational chart, which has been updated, the role of the council, which has been updated to reflect new changes in the city charter. Both Esther and I went through and made those changes. Contact information for council members, the roles of council members, the various departments, the various committees. So this is really something that everyone should use, not just new members, but everyone should use as a guide, you know, as you are going through. Also, some things that you should absolutely take a look at are the council rules, which we adopted again on the 5th of January, as well as ethics rules. There will be a subsequent FOI training. I am working with Mario and his team, and they will put on a real FOI training for us. I don't have a date for that yet, but I will keep you updated. That training is expected to take somewhere in the 45 minutes to an hour range, but we do need to have it. Mario is going to be joining us in a half an hour or so to discuss conflicts of interest, which is why that's listed on the agenda. So my feeling, unless anyone objects, is to begin a discussion of sort of legislative priorities. And when Mario comes in, we'll kind of table that, you know, have our discussion on conflicts of interest and then come back. Councilmember Ayers.
Mr. President, I'm in our email.
Yeah.
And I can't even find the agenda for this meeting, which is causing me to bring up another issue that we need to really address. We need to make sure that we're all getting the same information, because we're not all getting the same. Other people have been locked off of stuff. I can't even find, I'm in my email, and I said email. I can't even find the agenda for today. So I don't know if it's with the turnover of the new emails, is stuff being.
That's entirely
because
possible.
It automatically, like on my, it automatically shifts me to the new email, but I don't know if they're sending it to the old email, but I'm not on the stuff.
Yeah, so we'll have to review that, because and I know, because I went over this with Esther. And you know, one of the things is I know there's been some sort of an email transition issue when the agendas have been set out. They've been set to our email address, so citycouncil@orcc.gov, which is supposed to go out to all the members. So if there is an issue, we should work, you know, we'll work with our IT department and whomever needs to be worked with to facilitate that issue. Suffice it to say, you know, I know a number of us had received the email on, I think it was on Thursday, and the agenda was posted. But if there's an issue, Nicole, we will.
Well, she sent it this morning. I don't have either. And I know one of my colleagues reached out to me for something else, and they have my personal information.
Okay.
So they were able to contact me, and it was like, it was stuck. So just to
Okay.
bring that to the forefront.
Okay,
Forwarded.
all right. Suffice it to say, the agenda for this meeting, unlike, you know, our typical meetings, you know, there's no backup for this, you know, but obviously we have a meeting coming up on Tuesday, and, you know, we want to make sure. You did? Okay. All right. So we will have to take this up offline and figure out whatever is going on here. So I want to start. So one thing that I had talked to all of you about before we took office and now is I want to get a sense of priorities you would like to work on and or achieve by the end of this term. I want to do a quick reminder, though, for those who are new and also for those who are returning. in terms of the policy process. One thing now that we have committees and we have committee chairs, is to make sure that as you're working on policy issues, to work with the committee chair, the relevant committee chair, and obviously work collaboratively with the city staff, as it says in your handbook, and as the city staff works for the city. It's their job, to work with us as we are advocates for our constituents, and they do an excellent job at it. But there is a policy process that we've done, and also frankly makes sense in order to make sure that its communication is done as effectively as possible, and frankly also to make sure that staff it tries to eliminate confusion. Sorry, Mayor, is there something?
Yes, and it's just respectful of staff.
Gotcha. Yes, obviously. And one thing in notes in our handbook, and this should be obvious, but that, to be courteous and respectful of the staff, because they work incredibly hard for all of our benefit. But I don't think that, I said it, but I don't think it needs to be said because we all know this. And, our staff is excellent, but, the staff technically works for the city. But I just want to make sure that that distinction is made. So with that, what I would like to do is go around the table. Everyone say some things that they would like to work on. Part of the goal here I would like is to achieve some sort of understanding and consensus of things that broadly we want to be focused on. And then we can kind of narrow down like, hey, here are things as a team that I would like us, that we all agree that we would like to work on together. So I know this is a little different from something we've done in the past, but I think it would be great to sort of go around the table, say some things you'd like to focus on. I'd like to not debate those things right out the gate. I'd like to everyone to sort of go around and say some things they really care about. And I will keep a log of sort of where there's some overlap, and obviously we all will because we're all going to hear each other. But that's where I'd like to start. So Jan, you want to go first?
Sure. I have a preface to what I would like to achieve because Councilman Dellinger and I attended the Thursday evening meeting of state representatives and senators, and there were a series of questions that were asked of the audience, and none of those questions touched on, or maybe tangentially touched on, but mostly did not touch on what I thought was going to be of interest. There were issues of ice, so prevalent presence all the country. There were issues of how our privacy was going to be protected, since there is a demand from Washington for certain items of that kind, and perhaps when it comes around to Richard, you can add to that. Things that I'm most concerned about having changed since the election cycle, and that is, I want to see more equity in education and more money sources, therefore more money, therefore better opportunities to provide the best education possible. The second thing is housing. I want to see more housing, more affordable housing, and I'd like to see housing for an affordability, those who are housing challenged and those who are homeless. It's not time to be homeless, and there's a need there that I think has to be met. The third item that I have, I'll limit it to just those three, is the environment. I feel that we need to have a more sustainable and resilient environment. We've had money removed from the state, and it will affect us in the long run regarding sustainable electricity, sustainable power, renewable energy. And I want us to get back on track with that. There are other things, healthcare and food challenges that we have to get to. And go on and on, but I'll stop there and let others have a chance.
Thank you, Jan. And I just want to also just one thing. While I'm talking about sort of priorities, that these are things that I'd like, that you like to advocate for. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of stuff, and we're going to be moving on all cylinders. But I think that part of the purpose of this is so that we can figure out, hey, if there are things that we all want to push together, or advocate for, or things that are important to us, I think it's good to achieve that kind of saying the word consensus, but just get a feeling. So that's kind of part of the purpose of this. So Councilmember Ayers?
So I have a list, but some of it is appropriate for it to go into committee. And to my colleagues who are new to the table, one thing you need to learn quickly on your feet is what is a committee issue and what is a full body council issue. There's a lot of things, excuse me, that we could solve in committee that for whatever reason, we just don't know how that committee level should work. But overreaching, my first top thing is housing. And I don't even, I want us to be careful with our verbiage. Not low income housing, not affordable housing, housing period. We are an intergenerational community. You have seniors that need to transition somewhere. You have young adults who are entering the workforce that need to transition somewhere. And you have middle-aged people that need to transition somewhere. We have a housing crisis. So number one is housing. The second one is very personal to me, and it's really about the people at this table. There is not enough council training. And I have asked for the last 2 cycles for us to connect like our colleagues do in other cities, to connect with those national things that teach us how to be better in our seat. We don't do that. We have more excuses about money and stuff that I've ever seen in my life. We have to be trained to sit in this seat. Getting elected truly was the easy part. But once you sit in this seat and the work that has to be done at the level it has to be done, remember, we're all experts in whatever field we come from, but that does not make us experts in this seat. So my 2 is overall professional development for this body. And lastly, our young people. And I make it in a broad umbrella. Some people narrow down and say education. It's bigger than that. Our young people, holistic viewpoint of our young people. What are their needs and their aspirations? And how does that affect our community? And that touches really every committee we have. Young people touch every committee we have. What we do in every committee affects young people that are not even able to vote. And I do not think as the city of our size, we do a good job focusing on young people. Now, I will say this. We do have a Department of Youth Services that I think we need to take a look at and see, is that really helping the citizens currently? Is that really the best use? And is that what our young people need? I would argue they need more. Every child is not going to get in trouble, but that doesn't mean every child does not need to be serviced by the city in which they live. And lastly, our amenities. We do a piss poor job talking about our amenities. The bunkhouse.
Yeah.
How many of our citizens know what the bunkhouse is? We get in our own way. And we need to do a job understanding what our amenities. I'm gonna give Darlene some credit. When I first got on the council, she said something. Can I get a list of every property that the city owns? It took us 6 years to get it. 6 years to get a list. That's unacceptable. As elected officials, we should be able to say, oh, we own or have a paper where we can reference what we own. We don't know our amenities. So how can we manage what we don't know? I'm gonna leave it at that. The man took my Starbucks, y'all. I'm so upset.
Thank you, Councilmember Ayers. Councilmember Bucklow.
So I'll build off just Jan's point around diversifying revenue. And I think, just we need to be extremely aggressive at going after grants, having a grant writer in place. And then I want to connect it to kind of Nicole's points around so how can we better support our children, youth, and families, just expanding that. So children spend 20% of their waking hours in school and 80% out of school. So we as a community need to be thinking about children, youth, and families, and not just letting the school system kind of be responsible for all of that. So I would like to work with the mayor and this council to establish a children's cabinet which I've talked to Josh informally about.
Yep.
To better coordinate our city leaders, our legislative leaders, our school leaders, and community leaders that serve our children, youth, and family. It's a structure. I think there's some structures right now that currently exist where we're trying to get better at collaborating with the school system, but it seems like it's very focused on the budget. And I want to expand that conversation and those conversations broader to how do we can better serve all children, youth, and families, and better have a sense and a fiscal mapping of what are the dollars that are going to kids, not just through the schools, but through our various departments in the city, from recreation and parks to youth services, to the health department, to various other departments. How can we better coordinate city departments with our school system and our community leaders, and come up with some shared priorities about what are the needs of our children, youth, and families, and how can we all better align and work together on it? And I think a formal structure through ordinance, working with the city council and the mayor and her staff, would be an excellent start to starting those conversations and better collaborating and signaling to the public that we are all working together and have some aligned interests and priorities.
That's great.
That's my priority.
No, I love it. I knew you were gonna say it. I had written it down like ahead of time. Councilmember Winterstrand.
All right, I'm gonna do my third American first, building off of what Jesse just said. And I have some notes and I can speak off the top of my head too, but, just seeing us playing a more meaningful role in strengthening the mental health and well-being of Norwalk's children, teens, and caregivers. Because that's an aspect of this systemic issue that you talked about, Jesse. By funding and championing accessible mental health, social connection, and caregiver support initiatives, partnering with the new community center to provide welcoming space there, we can help reduce the loneliness, isolation, and stress. And I've been attending the planning sessions with the Norwalk Partnership and looking at the results of the mental health survey that was taken and identifying the areas where our youth just really specifically need more connecting spaces. And to your point, Nikki, to look at where do those spaces exist and what can we build on that we already have and how we can communicate. And that is really something that strengthens the entire community. So, and my second sort of basket is infrastructure. I'd like to see us in Public Works working on our stormwater utility program. This is a sustainable long-term way for Norwalk to protect our waterways, reduce flooding, invest in climate resilient infrastructure. Ensuring that larger commercial properties actually pay their fair share. The ones who have who have the most stormwater runoff, and I'm looking at Jim, we're aligned on this issue. And I'd like to see that revenue reinvested locally to strengthen neighborhoods, to support our green solutions and safeguard our community for the future. And then finally, building on the theme of creating revenue structure, I'd like to work in the ordinance committee on a vacant storefront fee. This would be intended to advance fiscal equity by discouraging prolonged commercial vacancy that hollow out our neighborhoods and shift costs onto tax burdens residents. So I see that as an issue of both affordability and livability in the community. I sort of started looking into it, but I'd like to have a conversation on the committee level.
We will,
Yeah.
because it's a big pickup. I've already been working on it.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
So those are my three unambitious baskets.
Councilmember Young.
Nothing so ambitious.
Okay.
Some of the things that we need to do are things that we can do within the next 6 months, within a year, within the city structure, how we business. But in high level, housing is always going to be an issue. And I think we've been talking about housing for decades.
Yep.
But the reality is, it's not been addressed the way that we like it to be. And right now, the land market. And so we can talk about housing forever. If we're not really putting in the effort, get to that point, we're still gonna be where we are talking about housing. Grants, I think we need a grants department. I know for a while, I was at the city and we had that grant writer who brought in over $7 million to the city. In different types of grants, and I think that we need that. I think that we have now is not so much a grant writer, but someone who coordinates the grants. So once the grants are written, this person ensures that the grants are reported on time. And that is not so much burden on the department. Concern for me is our blight and zoning violation enforcement process. Which is a huge concern. I think there's an opportunity for us to have those two meet together as opposed to separately. That saves on time. As far as we've got blight and zoning violations that's for over a year. And it goes back and forth as opposed to both departments sitting together and moving those issues forward in a meaningful way and enforcing products. Parking enforcement will continue to be an issue to me as the city grows. I know we're talking about the no parking requirements within some of these developments, and that's going to be a concern moving forward as we develop in what we call our urban core, which is South Norwalk and parts of District A. So District A and District B are going to have an impact with that. I think when we talk about IT, if we just, from our efficiency study, let me back up a bit. I think we did an efficiency study
4 years ago.
4 years ago. And I think there were things in that study that we should be looking at. I think that as we go through development and all the things that each department does, the efficiency study should be one of those things that we are mindful of, and the P O C D, because those are the two plans, right? That the city residents had great input in, and it should be our guide on how we move forward in development. So I'll stop.
President Josh, can you make sure that the new members get those two documents?
Yes, those are publicly available, and I will make a reminder to send them to the council.
Get a hard copy.
Well, that'd be great.
Request a hard copy if you want one.
Okay. I mean, I'm certainly can get a digital copy out today. But if people want hard copies, we can get hard copies. And I'll work with the city staff. I
think as we go through our county council meetings and for our agenda items, and I think at one point they were doing, one of the things that I requested was that each project should have on there how it correlates to the OCD and the efficiency study.
Yep, so in fact, I actually think they're required.
Real time
Yeah.
on how we're impacted.
I'm virtually certain they are required to do that.
They are.
Yeah,
No, now we're gonna be honest today,
Right.
because it's so close to Sunday. We asked, this body asked, the administration.
yes, I was just,
report
this was on my list.
on the efficiency study. Asked 3 times.
Yep.
I know Darlene asked a few times.
So did Barbara, when she was
No.
council president, so did I.
If she got here, had asked a few
This
times.
was on my
And
list.
the administration act as if they couldn't find it. They couldn't find the
I was
document.
talking about Rilling, the previous,
And so,
Yeah.
she knows who she is.
yeah, I'm not talking about her, I'm saying, yeah.
They could not find the document. I went in the office and asked for a meeting about the efficiency study, and yet we could not find the document. The residents have paid for that, and they deserve to see the fruit of what they paid for. And it's not for the lack of us asking.
Yeah.
Now, I just happen to have a really good chief of my committee who did report out on the efficiency study and what their department did about the efficiency study. But I know every department did not do that.
Right.
And we are yet 4 years still waiting. Still waiting.
Actually, Lamont, can you just give us a quick update, like what you know, because I know that, I was told maybe 2 months ago that, that update that we have all been asking for the council was pretty close to being ready. And so you would probably know where that's at.
And I'm sorry.
It's okay.
One thing, so first
Yeah,
of all,
let's
and
just-
everyone knows, everyone who doesn't know, this is Lamont Daniels, Chief of Staff to the Mayor, for anyone who doesn't know, but go ahead. And the mic's
Still
here.
Lamont.
The mic's here, yeah.
What?
For those who know or don't know, he's still Lamont.
What did I say?
That's what you said.
So Lamont? What happened?
I missed it. So yeah, so we have received the database from the previous administration. We have it, we are looking at it. We were informed that November, at the close of November, all departments were asked and expected by the former chief of staff to please update it. It's now in my hands. I'm now confirming that all departments did in fact update it. So we have that document and we're confirming and looking at it, and I'll turn it
Okay,
over to
so
the
let's
mayor
make a note.
so we can decide
Let's
what
make
to
a
do.
note that it is presented to the council in, you know, in
February.
the February, one of the February meetings. Right, okay.
Okay. I wanna, was there something you wanted to say about?
We can wait till.
All right, we'll wait.
everybody's
All
done.
right.
Just-
I also wanted to, I know Mario's on the line too.
Then let me just,
This is the grants department
Yeah.
coordinator and zoning
yeah,
enforcement.
yeah, I just, like, a couple notes. I mean, obviously, you know, we've been working together for a long time and a lot of your initiatives are my initiatives. A couple that I just wanna, comment on because these are things that I actually talked about during the campaign is about the grants writer. And I did say that I would hire a full-time grants writer. I have spoken with Rita, our grants coordinator. I've talked with, you know, some of the department heads. As you know, we have our different departments who have the expertise in writing their grants, right? But what I've been pushing is that there's gotta be a lot of grants out there as well as funding from, you know, from philanthropists. More than just grants, because there's not a lot of grants out there right now, right, with this administration. So what I'm planning, and I've gotten some pushback, right, we don't need a full-time grants writer. But I'm thinking, well, what about at least a part-time grants writer who can do that? So what I'm planning, I have an initial meeting with Rita coming up. And then after I meet with her, I'm going to ask for a meeting with Rita as well as all the grants writers from all of the departments. And just to come up with a cohesive plan as to what we really need. Do we need a full-time grants person? Do we need a part-time grants writer to work with Rita? So I think there's a lot of money out there that we can, and, you know, and just to the children's cabinet, Jesse, I think we know when there's, you know, more collaboration and more partners involved in asking for funds from like the big major corporations, there's money out there. So anyway, I just wanted to do it in the most responsible way.
Can I just respond to that?
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, just the last thing I didn't get to share, is children's cabinets concepts didn't come from me. It's a model out there that cities and mayors are following.
Yeah.
And it's a proven model to get into higher levels of philanthropy, the national foundations, philanthropists, and it's about pulling funders together to get more and streamline funding for its citywide priorities. And so it's a perfect model that would collaborate what the mayor is currently working on.
And then, Madam Mayor, I have a follow-up question. I don't know everybody's personal background. I know me and Jesse come from the nonprofit in the world. And I know Darlene has dabbled in community stuff.
Not dabbled, that.
Roots. I just want to, and Madam Mayor, you're gonna do what you're gonna do. As someone who's had to write big body grants, that is not a part-time job. And if you're walking in the room, and I don't know the coordinator, I've never sat with the coordinator, but that's just not a part-time job for a city of 90, whatever thousand people. Maybe we're not yet to the level of a department, which is like 3 people, I guess. But we can't, because that person has to write multiple grants at the same time. And the way you have to pull data from stuff, that's not no, unless they got wings in a cape, that's just not a part-time position if you want that person to actively get you money.
Yeah, and that's certainly my thinking, and that's what I've been saying, but, you know, given.
I'm just gonna take it one step at a time, just put it that way.
And-
I have
But,
to agree
I'm sorry.
I have to agree that that
Mine
is
is on the package.
the
Yeah,
case, but,
okay.
moving forward, I think that.
I'd like to table this discussion for right now. Mario Capola's on the line. It's going to talk about
Okay.
conflict of interest, and he has a time constraint, so I want to give him the opportunity to give us the information we need. So Mario, you should be on and ready to roll.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Did I freeze from? Okay, there, everybody can hear me well?
Yep.
All right, great. Thank you. So, I was asked to, I was
I'm
asked,
trying to,
I was asked to
Sorry.
brief. Do you need technical assistance?
Johan's gonna try to.
Over here.
Just let me know when you're ready.
That's better. This is the speaker.
It's the owl.
It's the owl. All right, go ahead, Mario.
All right, thank you. So, Council President asked me to briefly address you with regard to conflict of interest, which is obviously important for all council members to be considerate of, in your entire time on the council. So, each member must determine whether he or she has a conflict of interest or an appearance of a conflict that would disqualify him or her from participating in the consideration of a matter. A conflict exists when, for whatever reason, you feel that you are compelled to consider the application differently than you would otherwise for a different, the application of the matter differently than you would for someone else. Now, generally, reasons for a conflict are personal and financial. The clear conflicts are family members involved with something, a business partner, somebody you have any business interest with, and somebody you have an ongoing significant personal or any business relationship with. So let me kind of just briefly opine a little bit more about those different areas of conflict. I mean, with family members, I think it's pretty simple. Anyone that's a family member or a in-laws, even if you don't like them, I mean, there's a conflict there. Obviously, anyone who's a business partner, somebody you have a business interest with, there'd be a conflict. It becomes a little bit more difficult when we talk about personal relationships because, most of you, not all of you, are well known in your communities. You engage with many people, and you're not going to have a conflict just because you know somebody. And so it becomes a little bit more nuanced to determine when there is one. But before I get into just a little bit further into giving some advice as to when you may or may not have a conflict, what I would want to point out to you is that it's not just that you have, it's not just being concerned about when you have a conflict, but also appearance of conflict, which in a lot of ways is probably more difficult to decipher. And so often you're recusing yourself not because you have an actual conflict. You may say, I wouldn't treat this matter any differently because of my relationship I have with some organization or some person. However, because there could be an appearance of a conflict, I'm going to recuse myself. And an appearance of impropriety is enough to undermine the public confidence. Our case law is clear that you have to recuse yourself, not just for a conflict, but an appearance of conflict, not just the case law, by the way, also our code of ethics, because it's important that folks have as much confidence as possible in our public institutions, including our Common Council. And I'll tell you, just as a side note, I think that this council is going to have a higher level of scrutiny than other councils because there's a 15-0 majority of one party. And so I think that when you're considering a conflict or an appearance of conflict, you probably should be cognizant of that and more conservative in your approach. And if it's a close call, just recuse yourself, especially with, I believe, an expected higher level of scrutiny. So with that in mind, that you have to recuse yourself, not just for a conflict, but an appearance of conflict. Just to briefly talk about some examples with folks that you may have a personal relationship with. Just because you know somebody doesn't mean you have to recuse yourself. Just because you know you've had some involvement with an organization that's involved in a matter before you doesn't mean you have to recuse yourself. but at what level should you? As far as people that you know who were involved in a matter before the council, if it's somebody who you know them because your kid played on a team with one of their kids years ago, and or went to school with one of your kids, or somebody who lives in your neighborhood, somebody you ever that you say hello to, you've maybe been to some events with, etc. Probably not a conflict. But I always say, like, maybe the birthday party test. If you were going to have a birthday party for you or your spouse, your partner, and you'd invite that person, you're probably close enough with them that there's a conflict. And I think one way to look at it is if you would feel awkward not granting something for someone because of your relationship with them, then you probably have a conflict. On the appearance side, just be cognizant of what others may think. In the town I live in, there's a number of people with the last name Coppola that are related to my wife. So they're in-laws. I don't even know some of them that well. They're like second, third cousins of hers. I've met, I really don't know well, but if I was on a board or commission and somebody with the name Coppola came forward and I knew it was somebody that was related to my wife, and I didn't even know well, but I knew they were related to my wife, I'm going to recuse myself because someone's going to say, hey, you approve something, same last name as you, are you related? Well, actually, I'm not, but they are related to my wife, but I don't really know them well. If you have to get into that type of explanation to somebody, it's going to look like you have an appearance of conflict at the very least to many people. So just be careful again of appearance, probably even more than actual conflict. We have a code of ethics, and somebody could file if you're a public official, a complaint against you if they feel that you violated the code of ethics. So you should be cognizant of that and careful in your approach with regard to conflicts. Let me just give everybody 2 telephone numbers. Everybody should have my city email address. My telephone number, my direct dial.
Wait.
Yeah.
Oh, it's his city number. Yeah.
People can deal with it.
Mario, what's your city number?
Yeah, my direct office number is 203-571-1707. I'll also, Josh will email everybody my cell phone number or give it to everybody at some point. Well, I guess when we're not on a public feed. So at any time, anybody could feel free to. By the way, that was my direct dial number that reaches me at any of my offices. And Josh will also make sure that everybody, when you leave today, has my cell phone number.
Yep.
So if anybody ever needs to reach out to me to go over to review a conflict, you could shoot me an email or you could send me a text message, set up a call, or you could just call me. I'm available all the time. Something pops up, even if it's on the weekend. And so many council members over the years have taken me up on that offer and reached out, and we've talked it out. And I don't always find that there's a conflict. There's times where I said, I don't think there's a conflict. I don't think there's an appearance of conflict. I mean, thanks for checking in and discussing it. But and a lot of times it's just a discuss. We kind of have to talk it out to figure it out.
Yep.
I don't have an immediate answer, and we go back and forth on it. So if you ever have a potential conflict or appearance and would like to discuss it with me, I'm always available to you. And I'll just end with kind of where I started, which is that the determination as to whether you have an appearance of conflict or a conflict is up to you. I can't make that decision for you. I can't tell you to recuse yourself. I could advise you to. I could strongly advise you to recuse yourself, but ultimately it's your decision, and ultimately you have to deal with the consequences. So if you decide to go forward with something where there may be a conflict, you have to understand that there are consequences because we have a code of ethics. So I just
Mario,
be careful.
Councilmember Young has a question for you.
Sure.
You may have answered it, but I'm getting a double echo. So you were talking about the consequences just now. So what are the consequences for anyone who does not recuse themselves and is publicly viewed or noticed?
Or if there's an ethical violation.
What's that process?
Well, we have a code of ethics and we have an ethics commission. So someone could file a complaint anytime someone, and it's probably just a good idea if I just give everybody a brief overview of the Code of Ethics and Ethics Commission and hopefully less than 5 minutes here. We have a code of ethics for all the new council members. I'd recommend that you read through it if you haven't. There's also a really good guidebook to the code of ethics that the commission updates every few years. It's really an excellent reference material to get an understanding of how it works. But the gist of it is that if somebody feels that you violated our code of ethics, such as engaging in a matter in which you had a conflict of interest, they could file a complaint. Complaints are not made public because otherwise we'd have people who would be filing complaints for the purpose of trying to hurt somebody publicly or for political reasons. So complaints remain anonymous, remain confidential until an investigating committee determines that the complaint should take the next step, in which case there may be a hearing on it. And often complaints are reviewed by the investigating committee of the Ethics Commission and determine that there's no basis to go forward with the hearing, and the complaint is dismissed there and it remains confidential. So as far as what the commission could do, I think it has some, fairly broad authority as to, what it could do with regard to violations of the ethics code. Certainly could lead to somebody losing their position on the council. So I just, again, be cognizant of the fact that we have our ethics code. You should be familiar with it and aware of the fact that, it's up to you to decide whether you have a conflict or not. Don't assume that somebody is going to make that determination for you or flag it for you. You have to be able to flag it for yourself and make the determination whether or not you have a conflict or an appearance of conflict. And I'm always available to provide confidential counsel to you in helping to figure that out if you need that assistance.
Thank you, Mario. Does anyone else have any sorry, that tripped you up. Does anyone else have any questions for Mario? As Mario said, and I just want to end here by just saying that Mario, for all council related things, Mario is your counsel, and is our counsel. As Mario said, feel free to reach out to him if there's an ethical question or if there's something where you're not sure. In general, if you're asking yourself the question of whether you should recuse yourself from something, the answer is yes. But it's always good to talk it out. And that's part of Mario's job. And we're very thankful for him and the team at our law department for that. So there is also, the code of ethics is in your handbooks. So please do take a look at that if you haven't already. And Mario, thank you. And best of luck for all the games and all the stuff going on this weekend.
Yeah, we got a lot of games today. And this is the seventh council I think I've worked with now. And I got to tell you, for those of you who are new members, it's a really good group. And maybe the best so far. Certainly one of the best. It's a really it's all kidding aside. It's a really good group, and for those of you who are new, good best of luck. And you got a lot of good people who have some really good experience on the council, including in leadership. So I think you guys are going to do great things in the next 2 years, and look forward to working with you.
Thank you so much, Mario. Thanks for taking your time out of your Saturday to come talk to us.
Anytime. If anything else comes up, let me know. I can pop.
Thank you.
All right. Enjoy the weekend. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Good luck with the weather.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to go back to doing now what we were doing before, to continue going around the table, sort of 3 priorities that you'd like to work on, or that we should be working on as a group. My feeling in terms of the order, because I know there are some people online, is to finish out sort of Jim and Johan on this side of the table, and then throw it to people online, and then we'll sort of round it out. I'm going last, so trust me, I'm not. But I figured that way because I know they've been on the whole time, and I want to make sure that they get the opportunity. I trust that they're on. Stop. So, Councilmember Freyer, you are up.
Okay. A couple of things I think we've already covered. Obviously, Stormwater Authority, as Ian mentioned. And one of the other things about the Stormwater Authority, in addition to what she had said, was that what a Stormwater Authority will do, we will be able to pinpoint where our stormwater runoff is really coming from. And the costs associated with controlling that can be allocated to the people that are really responsible for it. And ultimately, we see that there could be as much as a 17% change in expense from residential over to commercial. So not only is it good for controlling stormwater runoff and all sorts of conservation issues, but also it's got a financial impact as well. So.
How much money is that, Jim? What is it, 17?
Not 17%.
What is it?
We could go from move the tax, the cost of stormwater control from residential taxation over to commercial.
But is that like 100,000 or is that like 5 million?
Could be as much as, maybe in a couple of, maybe 5 million, something in that neighborhood.
Yeah. Money.
Yeah, so it's not chump change.
Yeah.
Add to that, one of the things that we see in our taxes and, is if we take a look at our taxes and we go back and say, well, what makes up those taxes? What is the expense behind it? Last year, for example, the BET went through and looked at every line item in the budget and came up with savings of about $10,000. In a $450 million budget, that's chump change, okay? What we really have to focus on is how do we increase revenue on the other side? And as was mentioned earlier, there's a lot of things that we can take a look at. And part of the finance committee, we're going to start to look at. I've already requested, and I was going to get it probably next week, is a list of the property list that we were talking about. And I want to take that property list of all properties that are owned by the city. And take a look at which ones are excess, which ones are dormant, which ones are idle, why are they sitting there, what are we doing? They're not generating any tax. This could be an excellent way to also maybe address some housing issues. If we've got vacant property out there that's not doing anything, for example, as a good example is the city bought a property on Philo Street. That's about an acre and change, I believe. And that was when we bought the Muslim temple out.
Yeah.
And so that's sitting there, and we can probably use that property and set up cluster housing, for example, and make it affordable so people can start to do some asset building. So there's got to be other items like that we can take a look at. So that's all part of a committee that I would put together, a subcommittee in the finance committee that we will also take a look at at the performance reports, that every department gets a performance report every year in the Munis system. We don't usually look at any expenses during the course of the year. We look at it when budget time comes around, and it's really too late to do anything. So I think that it's imperative that we look at performance reports from different departments. Historically, the finance committee would get reports from the tax collector and the assessor on a monthly basis. And there's no need to get a report from each one of those people every month. If things don't happen in the assessor's office every single month. It's a good opportunity to bring other departments in, like DPW, and say, where are you spending your money? Bring the Board of Ed in, where are you spending your money? I'm particularly concerned that if we see or not surpluses, but favorability toward the end of the year, that we don't want people rushing out buying things that they come in on their budget. Okay, there's efficiencies to be earned there. And then I think also housing, I'm really concerned about housing. I'm on the board of an affordable housing, a Section 8202 HUD facility. I think that we need more of those. There's a new law going through Congress right now that is going to increase the amount of HUD funding miraculously. So that's something that we should be looking at for the city, get more of that housing done.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Councilmember Lopez.
All right, for the sake of time, I'll make this brief. I agree with significant majority of what's been discussed. But important, and I would add also, I think it's also important to engage the public more in terms of educate, helping them get informed of what's happening. There's a lot of misunderstandings about all these topics, and so there's a lot of information circulated, or there is no circulated. So I think public engagement when it comes to educating the public, informing the public is really important to engage them and let them know on what's happening. So that's it. I'll move on to the next.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Sawyer, you're up next.
Morning, everyone. A lot of good. Everyone's touched on a lot of the stuff I'm thinking of. My biggest thing is that identifying illegal apartments versus non-permitted housing. There's a lot of confusion there. Where I think the transparency with the public, like Councilman Lopez just mentioned, if we explain to them what it is, I think that'll be beneficial. I'm also looking at light pollution. I don't know if you guys recall the volleyball tournaments.
Light pollution. Lights. Yeah. Lights.
Lights or light trespassing, any way you want to use that term. But I think that's something where we can look at to help that particular situation, because they have light stanchions. So if somehow we can reach that, I'm doing a little bit of homework. Other municipalities have something in their ordinance, and I'll go back to that one. The affordable housing we continue to talk about as well, and I'm looking at converting vacant office space to some of these affordable units or cheap units. I do believe that's happening right now up on Route 7 with 102, building 102, I think it is. So there's already a start there. And the traffic, in particular, Silver Star Restaurant, the exit off of I-95.
Exit 14.
Exit 14. There's no reason there should be traffic, blocking everything in the middle of the day on a Tuesday. I reached out to the state. I wanted to find out how we go about block the box striping in that particular spot, but we need the enforcement. So PD would have to be involved. Lastly, the police department, the fire department, planning and zoning, the health department, with the illegal or non-permitted apartments in areas, we can have what we used to have called a fly squad. We all had a piece of it, so we can directly address it. And that's also part of the public being able to reach us and us explaining to them what's what. So, I mean, for me, you guys have covered a lot, and I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Sawyer. Councilmember Hostin.
Thank you, Mr. Goldstein, and good morning, everybody. I will also try to be brief. I think a lot of the themes that I was going to bring up have been touched on. I think we're all very concerned about how some of our most vulnerable neighbors are able to continue to live and to afford to thrive here in Norwalk. And I'm also thinking about how we afford any kinds of programs or relief strategies to help our most vulnerable citizens. I think that we can look at other municipalities where micro grants for housing and even groceries have turned out to be quite effective. And, I think, as Councilmember Freer said, there's not a lot of excess fat in our annual budget. So it really comes down to adding additional revenue. And I think this is where we really need to engage our partners at the state. I know Mayor Smith has made this part of her platform, is really working with Hartford to get creative, even if it's something like a 0.25% municipal sales tax that gets to stay here in Norwalk, right? We love our neighbors in Darien, New Canaan, and everywhere else. We would love them to come shop here, but if we're going to be the home of places like Best Buy and Home Depot, I think it's not unfair for us to think about a 0.25% sales tax that stays here in Norwalk. And I know that sales taxes aren't the most progressive way of solving problems. And so I think we can also work with our partners in Hartford to think about how we can offer relief for some of our, like tax relief for some of our most vulnerable residents, and not be forced to apply the same standards to everybody at different economic levels. So, it's about working together with Hartford and perhaps even with DC. We saw such a great turnout for Mayor Smith's inauguration. We know that our partners at every level want to help us succeed, and I think this is our opportunity to take advantage of that.
Thank you, Councilmember Hostin. I know Councilmember Edie requested that she go later in the program, so I'm going to move on to Majority Leader Seed.
Hey everybody, sorry I'm not there. Had to go away for my anniversary, so I apologize. I'm not there with you guys.
Anniversary.
Yeah. But you guys touched on a lot, but I think the biggest thing, I think that we really just have to affordability overall. Just because I think a lot of the topics that we touched on that we're all passionate about, like our biggest revenue source in the city is off the backs of the taxpayers. So I think we just really have to look at the affordability and understand that like these programs and different things cost money. And I think that's why even looking at ordinances and different things, I'm happy that Councilwoman Ayers has really pushed forward. And we're addressing like financial statements on the impact of ordinances, but I think that we just really have to look at the financial impact of like all of the things that we're looking for with the city, because it's going to cost money. And right now, that money is going to come off of taxes. So I just think that like we just really have to look at affordability overall. I agree with a lot of different things. And I think another thing, just to kind of piggyback and add some weight to it, Councilwoman Ayers said, like with training, I think that's important so that we can really be more effective. But I'm not going to just repeat everything that everybody said, but I think training, but bigger thing is like affordability of looking at the impact of things that we ask for, because the wish list is really going to come with a price tag. And I think that we just have to be cognizant of that to not really price out the residents that we're paying for.
Thank you, Majority Leader Seed. Councilmember Bailey.
Great. Thank you, President Goldstein. Again, I echo support for a lot of things that have been spoken about already. The three things I just want to highlight. One is just the, education, budgeting, and financing. And it just, what happened last year has really caused, continued sort of trauma for a lot of parents in the city in terms of the threat of, their kids' teachers being let go at a very short notice. So that's still permanent. So, I think we're doing a much better job this year in terms of the budget process for Board of Education. I think if we can continue that, and I think that's great. But I think overall, there's no magic wand to get more money there from the city. So, I echo the support of going to the state and speaking with our colleagues to get more of our, more if possible, ECS funded, and just, I know that's very hard because there's 168 other cities competing as well, but, it just has to be a priority. The other thing that hasn't been really touched upon, but I do think we should raise awareness, is just having an AI strategy for the city. If you look at what's going around all over the world, AI is such a huge part of every organization. Even in my company, we had just had a survey and 100% of the employees of my company use AI every day in their job. And, just thinking about the grant writing, AI is perfect for that in terms of understanding what grants are out there and then helping sort of write, the grant, 70% of the way. So I think we don't have an AI strategy. We look, unprepared because it really is, everywhere in that we need to incorporate it into the city. And then the last thing, just to sort of touch on what Joanne said about communication with the community. I think we should think about developing, a monthly newsletter on what the city council's doing.
There is.
There we go.
Yeah.
Somebody has to take it over.
So
Yeah, so, I think just having a newsletter that we can distribute to the city, to the constituents, but also if there's a way we can customize it, to add our own, priorities or our own sort of touches that we can send to, our different stakeholders that we have connections to, I think that is something that worthwhile. It's relatively easy and also AI can help do that too.
Yeah,
So,
right about that.
that's all I have.
Can't understand, we got two IT departments, don't we have?
It's
AI?
not an IT issue.
It's not an IT, it's a,
Well,
yeah,
It's application.
yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's the key is to think about it not as an IT issue only,
True.
but it's a finance issue. It's
Yeah, but it's an application.
Councilmember Dellinger.
Thank you, President Goldstein. Thanks for this opportunity. It was great listening to everyone talk, and I really learned a lot about priorities, so I appreciate it. I wrote down 4 as we talked. Most of them have been mentioned. My number one on our campaign was fiscal responsibility, and to be a grant writing or some of the other aspects of saving money. I just want to keep that as the highest priority for people's my priority. 2, sustainability is always big. I just think, the whole thing about the city being green, I would love to just keep that going. I just think that's a long-term solution to a lot of issues, including increasing solar and a lot of alternative energy sources. Number 3, communication. I'm glad you said it because I was gonna, as a new council member, I just struggle in terms of how to reach out to my constituents. I don't think it's been done that well in the past. I think, actually Parks and Rec, I got a great newsletter now from Parks and Rec. I love it. I hope the city does a similar kind of thing because I think the website's good, but I like something a little more proactive in terms of getting people out there.
Website's not good. Working on it though. Working on it.
And also with communication, I would love a little bit more priority in terms of recruiting people for all the 40 commissions and boards.
Yes.
I just don't think we put it out there enough, and to get the best possible talent. As a previous school administrator, my number one priority was people. And I would love to see us have the highest quality pool of applicants for these commissions and boards. So that's one. And then finally, housing is my weakest area. It's important, but it's also my weakest area. So those are my 4.
Thank you,
Thanks very
Rich. Councilmember Edie.
Thank you, President. Hi, everybody. It took me a while to get a few things, but now I have a few, so I'm gonna try to go quickly. Housing, of course, is, on everybody's radar. But I do want to push to fulfill the ordinance where we have to put an affordable housing committee together to establish and maintain this affordable housing account. And in the first meeting, that's what we want to tackle to get that going. We've been talking for a long time about housing, but now it's time we got to really put some action to it. Especially also still thinking of creative ways for middle incomers, people who are downsizing, our elders, 55 plus community, and also our seniors who need to downsize. I'm looking out for all that for secured housing. It kind of falls into also, Ann mentioned about mental health. Housing affects everything, because when you're struggling to pay your rent, or when most of your paycheck goes to rent, how can you remain healthy? So we need to keep in mind that housing affects everything. It affects the traffic in all kind of ways. Also, The microforest, I really do love the microforest that we did in Meadow Gardens. I'm hoping that we can do some more, maybe greenhouse gardening with vegetables, stuff like that to help people who are in food deserts or they can get to the grocery store, but that type of produce is too expensive for them. So that a way that we can at least help, not all, we might not be able to always provide it, but to be able to help those who might need it just to have fresh produce. Also public safety. There was an incident at the conservatory school. And I did talk to Chief Walsh about it a while back, and we're reaching out to them, but we kind of want to give them some information to help them be safe, help the students be safe and with their cars and stuff. So that's also on my radar. Parking, Ms. Darlene mentioned it with parking in the developments. I know that's P&Z, but there's something we need to do about it because I'm in a place where my family and friends, when they come to visit me, they have to pay for parking. To me, that makes no sense. So hopefully we can try to figure out something with that. And also including and educating the public when there's projects at the first stages, in the development stage. The people want to be a part of this. They're here, they live here. We need to keep them involved at every stage. People just want to be acknowledged. So I just want us to keep that in mind, whether we, whether we think it's a good idea or not. I'm just saying people want to feel a part of where they put their money in their community. So I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole.
Just to, Ms. Edie brought up something, public safety. And we all had an incident that happened recently.
Yes.
That we dealt with.
Yes.
And I think
this is a year or so
really
ago.
be thinking about that as we continue to move forward and we want to become a less carless, society. We're hoping that people are walking and folks are using motors, scooters, and all sorts of motorized apparatus to get across the city. That we need to just be thinking about what kind of ordinances or what kind of safety protocols we need to put in place, because I'll tell you, it's getting more and more risky to me when I see young people or adults on scooters weaving in and out.
Yeah, this is on my list.
And we're trying to share a car lane. So I don't know. I just think that that's something that needs to be top of mind as we continue to talk about how the city grows and infrastructure.
Yeah, so actually that's a great segue because the scooters were on my list. And for those who haven't seen, these are these very fast scooters where they're like kids who can go 25 miles an hour.
Electric.
On these electric scooters. And what?
He has one.
You have one?
Not electric.
Is a large.
Yeah, I can.
Right? It's going
Wow.
There's a little cell in it. Yeah. But I will say.
Speed racer. I want to see it.
Song.
You have to know how the car uses.
I just want like the flying
Oh, yeah,
Freyr,
yeah.
I want like.
Hey, the FF.
Think of a guy in Italian driving through Rome.
Oh, yeah.
With
I could see
Did you
it.
ever see,
Got a leather jacket.
do you ever see White Lotus where the Jennifer Coolidge is on the motorcycle? She goes, "Oh, look at me. What do I look like?" And the lady goes, "Peppa Pig." But
seriously.
all right, so here's my list. So scooters were on my list because this is a major public safety issue, and Chief Walsh had brought this up he's brought this up to me. I think he's brought this up to a number of us, including I think the mayor when she was on the council. This would be on my list of something that I'd like to tackle on the ordinance because it is a major public safety issue. Anne spoke very well, and I don't want to repeat it regarding the vacancy fee, that, anything that we can do to both create more affordable landscapes for people and our businesses, but also create disincentives for landlords to unfairly increase rents, I think is a good thing. And I know that there's a little ambiguity as to what we can or can't do in state law. But I think that it's worth having the conversation and doing the work, because if we do our work well here, sometimes that can inspire a change in state law. That has happened time and time again. And so that's something that I know Ann and you and I have talked about a number of times, and that's something I'd love to work with you on, because I think that's a really important priority. And obviously, when I say with you, I say on the council, and then of course the mayor and her team. The other thing I want
to suggest something on top of that, that there's a book called Nudge out there.
Yes,
And
I know that book. It's a Cass Sunstein book. Yeah.
No, it's,
It's not Cass Sunstein? Okay.
No, he's the guy who got the Nobel, he got a Nobel Prize for economics.
Donald Trump? Just kidding.
No, he can't. Maybe crayons, but, no, it's a book about, marketing to, people's needs and how you market it. And I think we should all read it. It's,
all right.
And it's coming at things from a different angle without getting into it right.
All right. Thank you. And I will look up that book. I also want two other things that were on my list, and one of which I was just inspired by Brian, which was I know that we talked about the efficiency study updates, and I had written down sort of IT infrastructure, upgrades. But one thing that I think is worth thinking about is thinking about the efficiency study in terms of AI, because when the efficiency study came out, AI was not really a thing yet. And I think that that's something to look at and explore ways that we can reduce like clerical or other sort of tasks that take time and can be solved, and that way direct our staff to be doing other tasks. So that's a half-baked idea, but since Brian brought it up, I think it's a great idea. I also want us to take a recommendation that was mentioned in the affordable housing plan, which is to work on developing a program to update naturally affordable units. So these are market rate units that actually already exist, but are either in older or less amenitized buildings that need real construction and upgrades. And one of the recommendations was to be able to begin working on sort of a construction remediation program so that it doesn't increase the density in terms of creating more buildings and stuff, but it actually rehabs the units, makes them habitable, and makes them, the idea is to make them these market rate affordable units, so that more people from different levels of the socioeconomic spectrum can live here. And as I understand it, and having some conversations about this, yes, there's some investment, but it's a relatively low cost investment relative to, say, like building buildings.
Does the redevelopment have a fund?
They do, and I know that this is kind of coming from a couple different places. But it is a recommendation from the study, and I think we should work to try to make that a reality. The last sort of thing that I want to, two other things that were on my list. One is, and this is something I started doing anyway and working with our economic development team, is really being aggressive when it comes to business development. Our commercial property rate declined tremendously due to the revaluation. And that has a lot of times not to do with us, and has a lot to do with sort of COVID era changes in behavior. And one thing that I want to take on and work with Mayor and our economic community development team is being far more aggressive in terms of building relationships, especially with some of our biggest companies in the city that we really don't have relationships with. And I think that, there are many, many businesses that contribute immensely to our city and to our country and to the world. And I think it's important for us to build those partnerships, figure out ways to have them help serve, our communities, whether it's from the most vulnerable to people who are looking for job training opportunities. And so there's a lot of that there, and that's something I want to focus on. And the last thing that I want to mention.
President, Josh, before you move on, it's not only, getting business, is retaining them.
Correct.
I've heard from a lot of constituents who are really upset with the close of Sedona, the close of Yard House.
Yes.
The close of Pinstripe.
Yes.
People are really upset about that.
Yeah.
Those were staples that people looked forward to coming to, and they just like skip like a little bit, poof, vanish. So I think it's important what you're saying, but if you can expand that just a little while. To retain, we don't want to lose what we got. We want to retain what we have.
I agree with that. And I remember when those happened, I had a number of conversations with Jay Habansky, who's our director of economic community development. One of those businesses, I think it was Pinstripes, just filed for Chapter 11, so the whole business went down. And there's nothing we as a city can really do about that. I will say that retention of some kinds of chains has been an issue that has kind of cropped up. Obviously, there are other chains that thrive here and, but those kind of community places, and what I mean, places where people can go and convene and dine out or whatever, having those kind of places is really important. So yes, retention is part of that, which is also why the initiative that Anne, wants to spearhead in terms of working to disincentivize unfair rent hikes or disproportionate rent hikes is really important, because a lot of times when businesses close, one of the primary reasons is because their costs outrun their revenue, and rental costs are usually a big contributor to that. The last thing I want to mention is we passed a tree master plan in which the focus was to expand our tree canopy by about 10% in the next 15 years or 10 years. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head. But the real emphasis, and I thought the most important part of that initiative, was getting more trees planted in our urban core. And one thing that I want to really push and advocate for on this council is to make sure that it's not just talking about it and doing a master plan, but actually planting the trees, getting the trees in the ground. And that is something I think we absolutely can do. And we have the infrastructure now and a very good tree program, and whether, Sarah Cruz and Paul Sotnick and, people who really know what they're doing. And now it's about making sure, because we live in a city where right now the temperature in the summer in South Norwalk is actually far warmer than it is in, say, if you were to go to parts of East or West Norwalk, where, it's cooler because there's just tree cover. And this is a fixable problem, and we can do that.
So I think as, Representative District B, we were talking about, the tree canopy. I think one of the issues that I see is that development is happening, but the trees seem to be a secondary issue. And we've got to do better. I mean,
Yeah, we want to elevate this.
If you look at Bryant Park right now, those trees that were planted, it pales in comparison to the trees that they cut down.
Yep.
They are not, there's
Correct.
no shaded area. Those trees are not growing to really provide anything. And I think we need to be mindful of that.
I think we need to be more than that.
Development that I see coming in.
Yeah.
There are these very small little trees on the sidewalk. And I don't know how you really count that as tree canopy.
Yeah, I
But
don't.
the one thing that we have done in that district was the microphone.
Yes.
And then we have the development across the street, the business owner who's going to try to plant, really green farms. I think the evergreens, he's making a concerted effort.
Which is great.
But I think there has to be something, we're talking about it and we want to see some real difference in South Norwalk. It needs to be a part of the development plan. We can't say to folks as an afterthought.
I agree with that. I think it needs to be part of the permits.
Absolutely. It should have been.
Well, what I would like to see, and this is something I just haven't done the research on, but is making that a requirement, especially if there's a special permit requirement, because a lot of those developments do require special permits. They're usually not as of right when they reach a certain scale. Requiring tree planting is part of something in the permitting, and I don't know if that requires an update to the zoning code, but that's something that I'd like to pursue in a way that, because a lot of times we've been accused of, and I think credibly of, and I'm talking, this is going back decades, where a master plan, is invested in, the master plan's promulgated, and then there's a question of how much we actually do. And if we're going to invest money in making these plans, in which case there's usually a lot of good stuff in those plans, we probably should, do some of it, if not all of it. And this is, I think this is an important quality of life issue. It's a sustainability issue. And in an era where people are wondering if government can actually get anything done, God damn it, we could plant some trees.
But,
So,
President,
I'm sorry, Councilmember Sawyer's had his hand up for a long time.
Thank you, President Goldstein. To touch on the scooter thing, it's the aftermarket batteries that are used. There was a fire on Elmcrest Terrace. The fire department is now working a program with these batteries, letting residents know. I was looking at EV chargers underneath residential buildings when I was in the office, and Milford has an ordinance against it. There was a EV charger fire in the Sono Mall a while back as well. So that's something that I think we can reach. And revenue. Several municipalities charge inspection fees for apartments. It may not be popular, but at $25 a unit or whatever the cost may be, we have over 300 three-family residents, three-family occupancies in Norwalk. So you'd be able to actually reach all of the apartments to get a fee, which would go towards wherever we need to go for affordable housing or to lower taxes or whatever the case may be. So that's something I think we could reach as well. Just wanted to put that out there to everyone. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Broderick. Councilmember Ayers.
How are we gonna organize this work?
Okay, great question, and
Because
thank
some
you
of
for
this
that one.
y'all know how I get a little antsy. Some of this is really board committee level work.
Yes.
And some of this is really our common work. I've heard, a few people said housing, I've heard a few people say
Yes.
about green, those were common threads. A lot of the rest of this stuff is really should be set in a committee. So I personally, because I like to be organized, can we decide, I know you were, jotting down notes.
Yeah.
What is the high level as a council we're gonna agree to push this forward? And what are those things that those committee chairs are expected to bring to their committee?
That is a fabulous question, and I think, I mean, it's a segue to where I kind of wanted to go with this next, and I'm being, I'm sorry.
Just real quick, so before can I add one more thing to the list?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, real quick, because we've had conversations with Chief Walsh about the whole vape ordinance. and some of the
Yes.
procedures. Can we engage state delegation to see what can be done at the state level to help strengthen the work that the city is doing with respect to?
Yeah, so, and so one thing that I wanted to do, it's sort of a plan of mine, and I'm happy to, yes, is the answer to this question. I think there are a number of things that we want to do and lobby our state delegation on as a council. I think we have not done as effective a job of saying, as a council, as a group here, to our state delegation, here are things we really care about, right? A lot of times, the state delegation gets information, a lot of times that we get information. You know, there are conversations that happen, there are conferences they go to and learn things. You know, there are a number of avenues, but direct lobbying has never been something that I think this at least in my 4 years on the council now, like it's not been something we've done. And so I think a lot of you, and I've written down a lot of what you've said in terms of things to advocate for. And I think it's worth presenting that to our state delegation. I want to put that aside though, and just say, to answer Councilmember Ayers' question, which is, look, I mean, I was going to compile this into a document and send it to everybody so that we can all see this and refer to it in the future. But I will tell you right now that housing is far and away the number one in terms of priorities that everyone has. There are going to be, it's not to say that we can't pursue all these priorities, of course we can, but that I want to make sure that there's a focus on, we want to do some sort of housing reforms, you know, by the end of this term that we're going to push hard for. There were a number of people who mentioned mental health, well-being of children. You know, that fits within obviously a committee bucket. All these policies are going to be worked through the committee process, just as we've always done. But I want to make sure that when we talk as a group, when we talk about a caucus, that we're keeping an eye on, hey, here are the big things that we talked about at the beginning of the term. How are we doing on those things? Are we moving the ball on our priorities? Because a lot of times issues will come up, items will come up, and we're managing the day-to-day, and as to what comes to the council, as opposed to using our job as advocates, to, think strategically and cohesively, and not sort of like as it comes up of what an issue is.
So I want to say, just as a follow-up, and I believe I've had this conversation with you. I do not know if I've had the opportunity to have it with our majority leader. As the person who chaired the Affordable Housing Committee, and who's someone who knows of housing as an issue, I was a proponent to dissolve that committee, not because I think we have answered affordable housing, but because I understand we did the work of that committee already.
Yep.
But I understand, and I gotta be PG because people are in the room. I know how this council works and how people get what they want, but if we're saying that we've all, at least 4 or 5 of us have acknowledged housing as something that we need to, as a body, address.
Yeah.
Again, to organize the work, you can do this through email, we don't have to do this, there needs to be steps.
Yeah. I agree
Step
with that.
1, we're gonna do this, step 2, we're gonna do this, step 3, we're gonna do that. And that outlives that, cause as an ad hoc committee, that outlives that committee, because really, housing not only goes in its own committee, housing goes to community service, housing goes to economic development.
Correct.
Housing goes into DPW, so you cannot, if you're going to address housing, you cannot disrespect it and throw it in its own committee, because it intersects too many different places.
Yep.
And then the second thing I would like from this meeting is some things that were raised, my colleagues just don't know yet, because I had to learn it at the table. Some things are not in our privy. Some things are just not in our privy. It could be a concern of yours, it could be something that you just think is, the city does completely wrong, but it literally is not in our privy. And the one thing that pops up is traffic. Those are state roads, we have no control. Now, we can advocate on the state level, yeah, we can do that. But as far as monumental changes to some of our traffic patterns, we have little effort on that. What we can impact is the developments and how the developments affect traffic, but then that goes back into economic.
Yeah.
But
Can
for the traffic thing, I think
Yeah.
the new lighting system is something that.
Yes.
Those are simple things in the flow of traffic, because all that we get.
Not simple, but
Right,
yes.
Well, it's a simple thing to fix.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be the DPW, in front of the mall every weekend, it's a traffic nightmare, and I'm sure it is in other places.
I live right there.
Right
Yeah.
there, it's a
Cars
traffic
on red
nightmare.
lights.
Yes.
And so one of the things I've been talking about it and putting it, we're asking the question and nothing is being done. It's been a slow crawl, everybody knows, there's lighting when you get off exit 15, every night that I come home. That signs, all the lights, the new lamps are out. I've been complaining for months, and then it's this bigger issue. I mean, our new lanterns that have been
Don't
put in
work.
don't work.
Yeah.
I mean, so those are in our purview.
Completely.
But I mean,
But
when
how
I
do
said
we
not,
streamline those things?
like
Yeah.
the overall
Yeah,
traffic is not in our purview. Streetlights definitely in our purview.
But that traffic in front of the.
Yeah, and look, we have a whole traffic mobility and parking department
Right.
that regulates the traffic on roads owned and maintained by the municipality. So the exception to that, and this is to go to sort of what Councilmember Sawyer said when he talks about the exit at exit 14, which is obviously the highways are all controlled by the state, including the off ramps, and then the main state roads, so like Connecticut Avenue and West Avenue, and like those big thoroughfares, or 136, that's a state road. Those are not controlled by the state. Our snow plows do not plow those roads. Those roads are plowed by the Department of Transportation of Connecticut. So it's not all one thing. However, yes, there are things we can do about traffic, but to Councilmember Ayers' overall point, and you've worked with me for a little while, you know that I'm all about the steps, because you do need to get from point A to point B. And a lot of times we will have a great idea, and a lot of times this is how advocacy works. You push an idea, it only gets so far, then you kind of keep pushing. But we've got, and I think what Mario said is right. I think we've got more scrutiny this time than we've done in the past, because there's a symbolic difference between 15-0 versus 14-1. There just is. And I think that one of the best things we can do is, work as a group to say, here are some things that are really important to us, which is exactly what we did today. Now, I agree with you. There's a lot more work to come, and there's a lot more sort of granular point A to point B, and there are going to be things that move faster than others. Things like housing is a massive challenge. I thought that one of the changes we made this term, and I know I'd spoken with you about it, and spoken with and Nicole Eady, was we changed the focus and scope of the ad hoc committee. Because as you are right, the ad hoc affordable housing committee was primarily created and focused on developing an affordable housing plan, a plan that we passed last year. And so we then reformed the scope of the committee to be on housing, not just affordable housing. And it broadens the ability for us to work on, you name it, opportunities, things we can do in the housing space. But you're right that if there's a specific item, it's going to go through a committee.
Well, maybe, I'm sorry, to Ms. Ayer's point though.
Yeah.
So are we prioritizing in form of long-term?
Yes, this is about
the
long.
things that we can do quickly within 6 months, you know.
That's what I'd like to do.
We already have a study.
Yeah.
Right, we don't need to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
I've sat
I
on
agree with that.
all last year, we talked about that, I'm not talking about that study, right? I'm sick about that study. We got a study, we don't use it. The study told us the steps, the study told us.
Yeah,
what to
it's
do.
why I
We don't
suggested,
do
for
it.
example,
One of-
something right out of the study.
One of the things this in the study is that we need to be talking to developers and understanding what is the possibilities and what are not the possibilities.
Correct.
That's something that we potentially do.
Right.
Another part of that study was how are we creative with housing? And somebody over here said, I don't remember, I know I'm at large, but I'm district eight to the day I die. All of those second
Transcript.
level vacancies on Wall Street, why aren't those apartments? You know, like, there's certain things that we all tangibly know and we talk about it to ad nauseum and we do nothing. And we have a study that tells us the steps.
Yeah.
So we're gonna be meeting about here in 25 minutes.
Well, but look, and I kind of want to bring this to a close by saying, in terms of an action plan. So what I would like to do, I wrote down, I mean, I jotted it down, notes about what everyone summarized. I'd like to put that together. Obviously, I will send it to you. If there's an issue, we will change it. If there's something you want changed, we will have that changed. I'm gonna distill from this list sort of the things that were mentioned the most. Or, ideas that were repeated more than once so that we have a focus. And then with any initiative, I always believe in teamwork makes the dream work. Because, the truth is a lot of these issues are too big for one person. So, I think that if we have groups of people who want to tackle a particular issue, I think that's great. And then the rest of us can provide advice and ideas but there are going to be people who take the lead on a given project. I have found that is the best way for things to happen. That's how we've achieved pretty much everything we want to achieve is there's usually someone who takes the lead or a group that takes the lead. And then the rest of us help out. So, I think that this has been a really great exercise to help us sort of think in the beginning about what do we want to do here? What do we want to push for? And by the way, there's going to be another version of this coming up because of course we are going to have to vote on the operating budget cap in about a month. And so, we're going to be thinking about how to achieve some of these priorities we want. We're going to have to think about it in context of, are there things we want to advocate for in the operating budget? Are there things that, we're going to try and do a little bit of because we have budgetary constraints? Are there budgetary priorities that we have or not? So this is the beginning of a discussion, obviously. But I really, really appreciate you guys taking the time to do this. And I'm glad that it didn't snow today. Councilmember Bailey.
Quick question. Are we members of the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities?
Yes, so every council member, since Norwalk is a member of CCM, any council member is allowed to attend any CCM training.
Well, can we leverage them as a resource to train us?
Yes.
In terms of once we get these priorities, they have huge resources.
Yes, is the answer to that question.
And
And
they
they
can advocate for us too.
they do provide trainings and free trainings. And one thing that I will work on as council president is getting a more heads up and a better list of when those trainings are coming up, because those are free, available, and if they're in person, they do. But if there are other resources that maybe we don't have access to or something, I'm happy to, or aren't emailed to us as frequently, making sure that those resources are made available. But yes, is the answer to that question. We also have a relationship with WestCog, and even though frankly we've had issues with them in the past, and I think that there are other organizations. I know that National League of Cities has always been on the list, but there's always been sort of a cost issue, but we'll figure that out. But that's the long answer to your short question.
Perfect.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
So, I think, I don't know if it was Duran Rivers or somebody brought up, did he request parking?
Okay. Long story short, the question was whether, there were certain, I don't know, benefits or something. And the truth is, I try and tread very carefully on this sort of thing because on the one hand, I want us to have the ability and resources to do our trials properly. I also don't want to make sure that there are any sort of abuses of power or the perception and reality of us getting perks, right? Because that's not our deal here. So yes, that was something that there was a question about that. Is there really anything here? No. I mean, when we park on a city street, we still got to pay them our parking authority just like everyone else. We may be annoyed by that, but without parking authority, our taxes would go up exponentially.
But can
So-
you do it, like, can you do it on I don't think, well, I should speak for everybody, because I don't know all you people
Yeah.
at this table. Well, okay, I think of stuff like, there's certain times where all 15 of us are supposed to be at something.
Yes.
Like, I'm trying to think. 4th of July, like if, when they have the bandstand and the mayor has to get up there,
Sure.
or maybe we have to get up there with the mayor.
Sure.
We can't get there because we're stuck in the thing. Can't we have it for
Special events or something?
when they have the Christmas thing or the Halloween thing, sometimes we can't get to the stage on time
Mhm.
because we're clogged into the thing.
Yeah.
So maybe not have it for every day.
But special circumstances,
like,
yes, I think that's,
sometimes we might need to just get to the.
yeah,
front of the
I
line.
think that I think that for special events and stuff like that, I'm sure there's absolutely an accommodation that could be worked out.
And let me be clear with this, and I don't like when we take one incident that happened decades ago and we use that as a blanket excuse.
Yeah,
So it was abused, so I hear, by a council person.
It wasn't me.
this was a while, I think this is before, yeah.
I'm not saying who
Yeah,
or
yeah.
when, but it was not in the last 10 years or
Mhm.
so. And so now we use that as a blanket excuse why we won't do that.
Mhm.
And for those specific reasons, we go to events, we try to get in.
Yeah, sure.
We're here representing the city. I don't see the problem with that.
Yeah.
And you take that on a case by
Correct.
case basis. If someone
Correct.
uses it, you take it away.
Yeah.
And another thing, I mean, my phone has my city, my personal,
Yeah.
my everything.
Yeah.
And if we get FOI, you're taking my phone, right?
Not mine, that's why I don't touch it.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, as
So
I understand
it's
it,
an
that's,
opportunity,
to
if
get-
you wanted one, to have a city phone. Chiefs of staff, department heads have it, we're here giving up our time just as well.
Yeah.
And we don't, if you want, well.
Yeah.
I mean, I find this to be very, this is a hest. I
yeah,
had to give up my personal computer because I had my work, I had someone who had my personal email,
Mhm.
sent it to my work and sent it to my.
yeah, it happens to me all the time. Yeah.
So I don't have that capability.
You know, and of course,
So I think as an option.
Yeah.
It should be offered to us, whether or not we want to take it, it should just be an option.
I will say, so not for phones, it's usually if you want a computer, that has something that's been offered. There are people who've taken it, there are people who haven't, because sometimes, as I understand from, I'm just saying this anecdotally, they're bricks. Like,
They are bricks.
Yeah.
No, at one point there were iPads, at one point there were little iPads.
yeah,
Someone didn't give the iPad back, so that was squashed, and I don't understand that logic, that just doesn't.
yeah, no, I don't disagree with that, and I know that there have been requests. One thing that I also have been looking into, and I don't want to really talk about this in a public forum, but I've been looking into the legislative budget, and if there's something that if that needs to be reformed, because that account, essentially the legislative budget has been sort of on the same for a while, and the question is, what do we want to use it for? Are there certain priorities and things we want to use it for? And whether that's something that frankly we can reasonably do. And I don't have an answer to that yet, so I'm not going to say anything, in this forum, because I'm not prepared to do that, but it's something that I've had my eye on.
Can you please also put on your things you wanna think about, Liz?
Yeah, thank you.
I know I have had it, I know, former council person Lisa Shanahan, like, our safety is important.
Yes, this is absolutely, and
No disrespect
Councilmember
to the
Edie
men
has said it
at the
too.
table, no disrespect to the men at the table.
Yeah,
But they don't never mess with the men, but they wanna come towards the women. And I told them, you don't come over here, you're gonna get upset. But we need to really think about there are some unwell people in our community.
it's true, and
And we have had, like, I've had threats to my house, Lisa's had threats to her, and it's not
I've had it.
okay. Oh, you've had, and it's
Yeah.
not okay, and, that's not a side that we tell the public, we kind of bear and grin it, most people don't even know what has happened to us.
yeah, usually that's on purpose.
But we talked a lot last term about the safety of City Hall, but what about our individual safety, not only us, our cars, we live in a sick world with, really unhealthy people.
And look, this is a concern with public officials everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I remember there was a horrible incident. I think this was
He said this.
a few years ago in New Jersey where someone went to a state court judge's home and like killed her husband and child or something like that.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
just happened a couple of days.
yeah, it just happened a couple days ago. I mean, there was an awful thing that happened in Minneapolis, to the head of the state house. And her husband, I believe, were killed. I mean, look, you're no doubt that's right. There are, I know that when these issues have come up, the police department has been incredibly responsive.
Oh, they are, they're wonderful.
In terms of an overall policy, in terms of like safety, that's definitely something that we need to work on. And I will also talk, and I know that Councilmember Edie, among others, has brought this up before about the safety of council chambers.
Yes.
And I know that there have been some reforms that were considered there. And I don't think those made it into the capital budget, but those would be capital level improvements.
But we had those conversations at the table.
I know.
With all respect to my colleague, Councilperson Edie, before she got here.
Correct.
Cause and Jimmy Moore said.
Yeah,
"There's
no, she
something
just brought it up
here,
recently and I
every
just-
person on their own. But what happens is we get this community pushback. And the community doesn't want it, and so we back down until something happens, and then everybody's gonna say, oh, well, we should have done it.
Yeah.
We should have, but that's too late. We have already had threats to our homes. Forget that we've had threats at our homes.
Yeah.
And it's, I'm gonna let you do what you do, Josh.
No.
Concerning, it's concerning.
It concerns me too, and this is something that, it's something that I brought up. I mean, look, a few years ago, I mean, you remember this because you were on the council at this point. We had an issue where people were doing anti-Semitic and very vile threats.
Yeah.
On our meetings.
Yeah.
And it, for a number of us, myself included, got sent anti-Semitic hate mail to my home.
Yeah.
And I remember at that point, we had a standard practice because we thought we were complying with freedom of information, that our addresses were listed on the city website. And I demanded, and the city did take our home addresses off the city website because no one wants that. And, and now we have a system where there's a contact form and there are, I think for some of us, I can't remember if this is still the case or not, have phone numbers listed, or emails. And unfortunately, we do live in a world where when stuff like that happens, it makes us not want to put our addresses and stuff out in public. So a lot of these kinds of reforms have occurred most speedily when an incident happens, but that's not a way to make policy. And
Why can't we give, for instance, instead of giving out our personal phone numbers?
Yeah.
And this is a cost to city, great.
Like Google numbers.
Numbers.
Yeah,
Still
so I
go
talked to
our
Esther about
device.
this.
They still go, so you're not buying me a device.
Yeah, no, I
It's
have
forwarded to
one.
my device.
I have one. And
Instead of these people.
I
showing up at our house.
talked to the city about this, basically right after I became council president. So this is a few weeks ago. And their answer at the start was there was an administrative sort of issue about managing basically 15 Google numbers. There's more to that. Like that can't be the right answer. So
But why did we accept the answer?
And it's the
we
same
didn't
thing
accept
that
the
happened
answer.
when we
That's my
asked
point.
Before, we've asked for this data.
So why do we accept, like, they could say that.
Oh, no,
but
we're
why-
not accepting the answer. I'm just saying that's the answer I got like relatively recently and I'm working on this with them. Yeah, no, of course I don't like that answer.
Is it a funding issue? Do we have-
No, not for that. It's
Like a dollar ninety.
it's not a funding issue. I want to,
Well, those are some of the things I think that should be on our priority list as far as, because I think security is a good.
yeah, and look, there's
We
the,
about to print new cards. And so maybe before they print those new business cards.
yeah, we have not, I've talked with Esther about this. We've not printed new cards yet, so we can, if we want to change it or there's time, we can do that.
New cards are only gonna be for the new members.
So we're all getting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking, because one of the things about our old cards is that a lot of it now has some outdated info. But I did look into it because it's a bit of a budgetary issue, because again, we have a pretty small legislative budget. So if you do 15 sets of business cards, it can hit a little hard. On the other hand, that's kind of part of the reason why I'm looking into the legislative budget issue, because it just shouldn't be like, for example, anytime we've had to have a council meeting, and we do a caucus meeting before, and, there are accommodations that need to be made, like those come out of my budget. So, that's something that I'm thinking about, but there's more to it. Jeff?
This is a helpful conversation with a lot of context.
Yeah.
I think just thinking about next steps, when you're creating your list of the priorities, there's some like administrative stuff, but like, it seems like some of these last things fall into that.
Absolutely.
There's some kind of state level advocacy.
Yep.
Partnerships
And
with
then there's
our,
the stuff we can do.
and then there's the stuff we can do that I feel like the first step is what committee or committees start that process. I'm just trying to think about structure to.
Yeah, it's exactly what Councilmember Ayers was talking about too, and that's exactly right, which is basically, if there's an initiative, right, what group of people are gonna take the lead on a given initiative? Where is it gonna go? And then having that committee chair, also provide, advisory, but also help with them sort of be a liaison. I mean, obviously, any of us can call any department person whenever we want. I mean, we're talking being residents, we're members of the council, but it's best when you're doing policy changes in process that the committee chair be involved in that. And to manage it, make sure that these things are moving forward, because a lot of times it's very easy for initiatives to get stalled because there's a crisis that shows up, or there's, another concern, or now we're doing budget, or now we're doing this or that. And so a lot of it is just managing and making sure that there is progress. And I think that part of something that we can incorporate as part of our caucus meetings are sort of brief updates on initiatives that we really care about. I mean, we care about a lot of initiatives, but these sort of top priority initiatives. So there's just a quick update. And frankly, whenever there's a deadline and need for a quick update, that's usually when a lot of the work gets done too. So part of this is also about just managing and accountability. So yes, is the answer to your question. And look, this is a bit of a change in the way we've operated, and some of it's a change and some of it's not. And there's going to be some fits and starts, and there are things we get right and things we get wrong, but I'd rather get caught trying than not. If it's all right with you guys, I think it's a good time to bring this meeting to a close.
Amen.
And I hope everyone, get batteries, go to Home Depot, get food, do this, whatever you gotta do, because there's gonna be a ton of snow tomorrow.
How much?
And,
What you guess?
it's, we, about 9 to 13.
Go around?
Yeah, really. Oh, you wanna,
More revenue.
well, Jalen sent out, I know.
Well, I sent the email right before the meeting, so.
Yeah, he sent an email with the updated forecast, and I'm sure there'll be once later, and our council's chief weather correspondent, Jalen Seed, will be on it.
Yeah. Can you provide hourly updates during the storm?
I want it outside, yes, and I want a green screen, and, over here in Cranberry, it's gonna be 9 inches, over here, yeah. So, with that, the only motion in this meeting, someone's gotta make it.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thanks, everybody. All right.
Thank
Joe.
you. Have a great weekend. Be safe.
New Jersey has,